Hello and welcome back to the Pilot Hockey Eagles postgame show. If you missed this game, you're a disgrace. Because seriously, this is one of the most amazing games on earth. If you're just tuning into the show, like you see the postgame show, I wonder how they did. You missed a thrill ride in this game, 37-34 in overtime. The Eagles win it. It's time now. Kayla Santiago joins us on the panel for Kayla's Diamond Debate, brought to us by Mark's Jewelers. Kayla, talk about the holiday season and Mark's Jewelers for us.
They've got a ton of deals that we will talk about after this segment, but let's talk about what I've got on today. A huge Eagles win, by the way. I'm super hyped up to be here and just talking with you guys. But we've got the beautiful bracelet that you want to go make sure you get, as well as the pearl necklace. These are my absolute favorite. I actually got a pair for myself, so I definitely have a lot of people that should go get them, especially if you're looking for a Christmas gift. And then, of course, the beautiful pearl earrings that match perfectly with the necklace and the bracelet. But, guys, we've talked about Brian Johnson. You alluded to it in the pregame show and then also in the postgame show. Mike, I'm going to start with you here. I think that he made a lot of second-half adjustments, and that's what we've been talking about him needing to do. Do you feel like you saw enough from him today? Do you want to see more going forward? Of course, we want him to get better and better, but this game we really saw Brian Johnson finally make some adjustments in the second half.
You've been very down on Brian Johnson.
I have. And now I was here, and I'm a little bit in the middle after that win.
Well, listen, I don't understand. Like the first half, to me, is like they weren't ready offensively to play. I don't get that. And so, like, play designs you have to get your team off. And sometimes, like, the way they start, it's like you're not interested in getting the team off with some things that will really click and establish something or mix something up or get the ball. I thought they were going to get the ball to A.J. Brown a lot today because they didn't get the ball to him last week. And they didn't really, I guess he had 9 targets today, but they get away from the run. They call these weird wide receiver screens, which never work. They never work. A screen to the running back occasionally will work. The wide receiver screen never works. They don't have a tight end they can use that screen. They like to run it with the tight end. So I'll give him a break. He's without a tight end, which completes the offense. Because that makes, with Goddard in there, it makes the offense a lot more versatile. And maybe he just can't find the right methodology without this tight end.
Now, the votes on the poll on the Twitter page are, yes, they need to see more, about 35%. No, they don't. And then, of course, seeing how the season goes on is about at 36% as well. So make sure you go vote on that Twitter poll. But we'll go around here, Seth. We'll go to you now. Brian Johnson in this game, you guys already talked about the rushing yards in the first half, and then they have 116. By the way, DeAndre Swift, 2 huge runs to really put the pedal on the metal. Are you happy with the adjustments in the second half from Johnson?
Yeah, I love the adjustments, that they've made the last 2 weeks. I just, it's just hard for me to understand why we can't start a game off that way. Let's start off running the football, and then, that will open up the rest of the passing offense. But, we sputter through a half of football, the 3/4 of football like we did today for us to get to the point of understanding that we have to run the football to balance up our offense. And, Mike, to be honest with you, I didn't expect for anyone to have a big day catching the ball today, just similar to last week. I thought that it would be another one of those gritty, grimy games, where both teams, had to run the football in order to, find any kind of offensive continuity. But Devontae Smith wound up being the guy to have a day. 7 receptions for 106 yards, and a big touchdown catch. But I think that, you talk about the absence of a tight end. I think that, this is another curve that Brian Johnson has been thrown. You go from being the quarterback's coach last year to being the offensive coordinator, the guy that's calling the plays this year. So for the first time in your career, you're actually calling plays. You're playing against some of the better defensive coordinators and their proteges in the league because of your Super Bowl success the year before. And then all of a sudden, you lose the top 3 tight end and one of the integral parts of what you do. So now you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I right the ship? Who do I go to? How do I go to? How do I design it, to make it make sense? Because you can take away, the 2 wideouts, but you can't take away Goddard. Now that you don't have Goddard, you don't have to worry about taking them away. The defense can take away the 2 other guys, and now you got to figure out which other piece do I use on a consistent basis, or how do I mix it up to make it all make sense, So I'm going to defend him a little bit, and I've been critical too, but I talked about in the pregame, we talked about in the last segment. I'm giving him a break because I'm beginning to go back and look at the offense and look at ways that he's actually coordinating those screens. They may not work, but they're setting up other things down the road in the game that they're going to later on in the game, and they're having major success with.
I thought in the early goings of the season, it was a slam dunk as to who was the better coordinator. It was Sean Desai versus Brian Johnson. First or second year coordinator, obviously in Sean Desai, but first year here in Philadelphia, first time play caller, offensive coordinator with Brian Johnson. Sean Desai was running away with it. I believe thoroughly that you have now Brian Johnson closing that gap between the way they started the season and right now. And one of the biggest things is you talk about the second half push that this team consistently has. Nick Sirianni has his fingerprints on this offensive game plan and play calling in the first 15 plays. I mean, that's more on him than it is Brian Johnson. To see him flourish in the second half and see the team flourish in the second half, and Jalen Hurts is obviously a huge part of that, I think is a huge feather in the cap for that of Brian Johnson. And let's look again. He is a first-time play caller in the NFL. He is 1 point worse than Shane Steichen was last year in a Super Bowl season. He's about 30 yards fewer for the entire season than Shane Steichen was. And this is a guy doing it the first time in his career. I am willing not necessarily to give him a break, but I do see the light a little bit more with Brian Johnson, and there's a method to the madness more so in the second half than what I've seen.
Question. I can go back to 2017 when the Eagles, in my opinion, were going through a similar situation. Doug Peterson had proclaimed that he was going to call the plays, okay? The team got off to a shaky start. They weren't running the football. And I got the sense that Frank Reich, because he had been in the league so many more years than Doug Peterson, I had always said that Frank Reich is the voice of reason for Doug Peterson because it was clear that Doug wanted to throw the ball, and his mandate might have been to throw the ball. But when the offense really got to rolling, it was because they made a decision to run the football, and it balanced everything up. I don't know, maybe I submit to you guys if Nick Sirianni's fingerprint is all over this game plan, and it's been all season long, when they start a game off with the intent to throw the football, it maybe is that, Nick Sirianni's fingerprint so much more as it is Brian Johnson later on in the game being the voice of reason, saying that, hey, this 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, because listen, what did the Eagles do? Let me get over here. They went touchdown, interception, punt, fumble, half. Punt, touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. So you can see the kind of inconsistency in the offense, especially through the first 3 quarters before things started getting, on track, and they began to get on track because they began to run the football. So I ask you the question, if Nick Sirianni wants to put his fingerprint on the offensive game plan, could it be that he is the one that really wants to pass the ball early in the game, and Brian Johnson is the one that's the voice of reason later on down the road that's saying, hey, coach, maybe we need to rein this in a little bit and be a little more balanced in what we're doing.
Great question for John McMullen, and I'm going to let you ask that question to him. Here's what I miss, Seth. I miss the quick slant to A.J. Now, I don't know if they're taking that away. I don't know whether the tight end being absent shuts that play down. But that play had tremendous, unstoppable success early in the season. Why aren't they running it?
Because I think that there are some things that have to happen. From a defensive perspective, you kind of saw Tony Romo break down the shell, in red today in the broadcast about how they were playing. So they gave him one look, and then they rotated, to, a quarters, halves look, or a quarters look to make it seem like, okay, we gave you one look, but we're not going to let you hit big plays down the field, So a lot of times the quarterback will get to the line of scrimmage, and he's got a play call, and he may check the play at the line of scrimmage based upon what he sees and what he thinks that they're in. But once the defense begins to morph, and they disguise and the ball is snapped, and now they move to something else, it changes the play, and it changes what your adjustment possibly could be. And a lot of it, too, is I can't see. I got to go back and look at the film. It sounds like Nick Sirianni now. I got to go back and look at the film to find out how they're playing A.J., because if they're going to double him, like if I was going to double A.J. and I'm trying to take him away, I want my corner playing inside technique, and I'm going to shade the safety his way. So in other words, I want the safety to force the outside release and get on his inside hip and be 2 yards behind him and a yard inside. Now, any out breaking route, I got safety help. Anything that's breaking in or anything shallow, the guy that's pressing him and making him release outside, he's responsible for that. And you can shut all windows. Out route, he's in the window. In route, he's in the window. Any kind of skinny post or post route, he's in the window. And the pass has to go over the top and outside because he has safety help. That could be a reason why you're not seeing as many slants as you saw earlier in the season. So it really all depends on how defenses are now playing him. And when you don't have Dallas Goedert, you have to factor that in. Yeah. You don't have Dallas Goedert and you don't have Lane Johnson. You know, one of the interceptions today came because Leonard Little, batted the ball up in the air. Lane Johnson's not allowing that to happen because really what's supposed to happen, you're supposed to cut that guy. That guy's supposed to be cut down. So when you run that read option, cut him. So if he wants to throw it, now the lane is there. But there's all these factors that factor into why AJ the last 2 weeks is not having the type of games that he's had, early in the season.
But this is what makes Jalen Hurts so good at the same time, because you look at A.J. Brown, he's going absolutely off in the beginning of the year, and everybody's saying he's a top wide receiver in the NFL. Then all of a sudden teams are starting to figure out maybe how to cover him just a little bit without Dallas Goedert. And Jalen Hurts finds other ways to win, whether it's with his legs, throwing to Devontae Smith, stall we saw today as well. Jalen Hurts right now put this team on his back and continues to do so. And I said it earlier in the week that he's the reason they win ball games. Josh Allen, he's now 0-6 in overtime. Jalen Hurts, not the same thing. And you guys have talked about you don't want the Eagles to necessarily peak right now. You want to wait until later in the season. But for Philadelphia, last year it was a flashy season. They had a lot of good things. They were winning games, and you felt confident about every single win. Is the identity this year, though, just to battle it out and win games and find ways to win no matter if you're down or up against good or bad teams?
I think it's that way every single year. I don't think it ever really changes. We talked about it in the pregame, how Jason Kelce has said it, Jalen Hurts has said it, and even Nick Sirianni said it. Every year is a different year, and it has its different challenges, and it's different obstacles. And I think what you're seeing is teams are trying to figure out ways, to mix up what they're doing. You cannot give Jalen Hurts the same look all the time and think that, you're going to beat him that way. You've got to disguise what you do. You got to give him some new things. You got to play some zone. You got to play some man. You got to play some combinations of half zone and half man, if you will. There's just so many different things that you have to do. And I think that teams are figuring it out. Good defensive coordinators look at when defenses have success against successful quarterbacks, and they say to themselves, well, we do something similar to that. We can take some of that and incorporate what they're doing into what we do to give him a different look. Because what is Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson doing? They're looking at how defenses play from week to week, and they're game planning based upon what defenses are showing them. So if you can come up with something, just a little wrinkle here, a little wrinkle there to give Jalen and Brian and Nick something different to think about or something to have to adjust to during the game, then you're doing your job.
And I think also when you talk about the players not wanting to peak until the end of the season, the coaches are also going to get better and better, especially the coordinators, I think, every single game. Mike, I'm going to go to you, though, because you have said before that kickers may not be real football players. Jake Elliott, once again, proves that he may be the best Eagles kicker in history. He puts the team on his back once again. He is Mr. Dependable. What do you have to say about that now?
Kickers are kickers. They're not football players, but they're necessary, and they're a necessary evil. They're
not football players until you need them to make a 59-yarder.
It's like a lawyer. They're not real people unless you need one. That's the same kind of analogy. But I am.
Good thing you're a lawyer, Mike.
He's so reliable that I have no doubt that he's going to make. That's going to be 3 points every time he lines it up. Even I thought this field goal was going to be larger than 60 yards, and I go, so what? He's going it's even at 62. He's going to make that kick. Yeah. So when he's lining up for 59 at that point, What I tell you, I go, that's good.
I'd never seen him more confident
It's
and
good.
calm
Like,
about
I've
anything.
never
About a
really,
non-football
And I'm like,
player.
it's a marshy, it's a marshy field.
Listen, I know I go off on kickers because I have that much respect for football players that really dig in and blood, sweat, and tears and the whole thing. But this guy is as important, plays an important role for this team as anybody because he gives you points every week. And every week you don't have any angst. How many kickers have we had to go through where you go, you never know, right? It's you always know with this guy.
Well,
I
I
never
think
seen
it's-
anything like it.
I think it's a matter of maturity because, there's been times over the last 2 or 3 years where, he'd line up and we'd wonder. There's times where, he sprayed an extra point here or there. But it seems like the bigger the kick now, the more sure you are that he's going to put it through. And I'm going to tell you right now, that kick might have been good from like 68, 69 yards because from 59, it went in the net.
He drilled it, too, which I go, okay, Buffalo knows that he's got to kick this low. Like, you would think that would be at a risk to get blocked. But he just, like, phenomenal. He's a phenomenal. And as the longer it's going on, Seth, to your point, he's got such supreme confidence now. Like, look at that other kicker. Like that guy
Tyler
comes
Bass.
out. Yeah, Tyler Bass. He gets a kick fly. He misses another one in the right. And
That was a big miss.
Teams go through that every week with their kicker. They never know from one kick to the next. Listen, you have Justin Tucker. I get it. There's some kickers in the league that have that kind of security. But this guy's about as secure a kicker as I've ever seen. So,
Well, Bass-
for the time being, he's a football player, Kayla.
Bass,
Just for this week, right?
Today, man. Yeah.
Bass gets one block, then he turns around and misses one. You talk about the psychological thing that's going on. The thing with Jake will miss the extra point and then make the next 10 kicks in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, no problem. It just doesn't affect him psychologically.
And I think that's what makes him so powerful in a game like this. And scrolling through social media, just seeing what everybody thinks about Jake Elliott, they say, okay, Elliott or David Akers for the Philadelphia Eagles as the best in history. I think right now there's no debate, right?
I did not think there was a debate before today. in all honesty, as much as I wasn't confident he was going to make the 59-yard field goal at that point of the game, but I mean he's won a Super Bowl. I mean he is money from 50+ out, made more, he's more consistent. I don't even think it's a question at this point, and this is all due respect in the world to David Akers. It wasn't like I was just rooting for someone to just take David Akers' spot as the best kicker in Eagles history, but I think that a guy like Jake Elliott has taken it and absolutely run with it consistently.
We just have to compare, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't be.
We gotta debate, right? We gotta debate something.
You can't be grateful for what David Akers presented.
I'm
to the
grateful.
team and be grateful for where Jake Elliott is right now.
Well,
we got to compare.
I believe it was Teddy Roosevelt comparison as the thief of joy.
100%.
Yeah,
that's my point.
I'm agreeing, but
You're
at
going to
this
run
point,
into David. He still goes to the Jersey Shore, man. Yeah, I think he's still got to have
Huge fan.
place in Ocean City. You're going to run into him far as that.
yeah.
He's not going to be happy.
You ain't no
with either
Jake
of us,
Elliott.
apparently.
You ain't no Jake Elliott. No, all the respect in the world. But if you're asking me who's a better kicker, who's the best kicker in Eagles history, it's Jake Elliott.
And talking about banking on Jake Elliott, you can also bank on Mark's Jewelers as they have great deals from now to November 30th. Give you 5 years to pay and up to $5,000 off. There's no reason to wait. And for Cyber Monday, you'll get 25% off plus free shipping for 24 hours only. Don't miss out on these fantastic deals. If you want to get somebody special a gift for Christmas, go to Mark Jewelers as that rounds out our diamond debate for this segment here. Fantastic game. I love when we don't have to debate about too much because at the end of the day, the Eagles are 10-1, and I think we're all feeling pretty good.
It's phenomenal. You're watching the Final Hockey Eagles postgame show on 6abc.com and also on the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel. And coming up, the great John McMullen. He covered the game at Lincoln Financial Field for JAKIB Media, and we'll get John's spin after this.
Hello
And welcome
to the Diamond Debate
with Liam and Hillary.
in the heart of Montgomeryville, PA at Mark's Jewelers.
So what do you got for us today, Hillary?
Well, Liam, to kick off this football season, there's no deflate gate here. There's a 3-carat oval diamond. It's earth mined and it's completely natural. What do you think of that?
Now that's stunning. I mean, millions of years under the Earth's crust for something so small and beautiful.
You think she's small?
Well, I mean, do you have anything bigger?
Of course, I've got bigger.
I mean, bigger's always better.
That's what they say.
Mhm.
Well, I've got an earth mined natural 5 carat oval diamond. Was that big enough for you?
Wow.
5 carats?
That's a carat a finger. That's something right there. I can't imagine anybody saying no to one of these.
No, I guess not.
Do you have anything smaller, maybe?
Smaller is subtle and definitely beautiful still, and it's still fabulous. An earth mine oval diamond set in a solitaire setting. This comes in 14 karat yellow and white, 18 karat yellow, white, and platinum. Any way you want it. What do you think?
I mean, any way you want it. I can't imagine it any better, any different way.
That's right. So come down and see us here at Mark's Jewelers, where love grows here.
Every day of the week except Mondays and Sundays.
That's right. We're closed.